name is Mitch Cook. I'm a retirement plan advisor here at Excel Wealth Management, and we're really happy to have Cowbell joining us today for our this month's and really the last of the year's financial roadmap webinar series, Identity Theft, Protecting Your Digital Self. Before I get started, those of you that have questions throughout the presentation, just a little bit of housekeeping, utilize that Q&A box in the Zoom webinar feature. You can definitely type that in. Any questions that you have along the way, and we'll answer those questions at the end of the series. Again, we're really excited to have Cowbell joining us today. I have Matthew, who is a Senior Vice President with the Cybersecurity Services at Cowbell. He holds a PhD from Purdue University with an expertise in cybersecurity and intelligence. So definitely an area that we're seeing evolving in today's world. Before working at Cowbell, he worked in a senior position at AIG, an insurance company, and along with other intelligence communities. Cowbell is a cybersecurity insurance company who works with small to medium-sized enterprises serving over 30,000 members. So definitely excited to have you on this presentation today, Matthew.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm just reminded, I just went through my own retirement planning review not even 30 days ago now. So this could not happen at a better time. And as Mitch said, my name is Matthew. Cowbell is a cyber insurance, and we take great pride in more than insurance people, more than looking at businesses as risk or policies. We consider ourselves the security partner when it comes to cyber, mainly because cyber is so new. It's constantly evolving. If you want to look at the world of insurance and think about roads and auto insurance, the roads are going to change maybe every 10 years, which will add risk to your driving routine. When it comes to cyber, you're looking at every 6 to 8 hours, something new comes out, which means that folks who are not versed in cyber, who are not living in cyber, it is very hard for people to keep aware of everything that's happening. And that's our mission at Cowbell, helping businesses recover, understand, prevent cyber risk. Our commitment is to reduce the cyber risk, as Mitch mentioned. I'm the senior vice president for our resiliency services. We offer anything from free services such as micro pen testing or free advising sessions, all the way to some high-end network solution like network MDR monitoring. The first thing I want to talk about today is digital identity and why it matters. And I'm glad to see all of you joining today, because few folks understand that today's digital identity is yesterday's keys to your house. That's about as clear as we can make it. If we look at the overall number of cases and compromises happening today in the world, whether we're looking at third-party compromises, fraud, extortion, data breaches, 86% or more of those compromises and attacks were successful because the actor was able to leverage somebody's identity, either a first name, a last name, social security number, or as simply as a login or a password. Once access is gained, it's just a matter of time rather, before all the bad news starts. So we get that question a lot. Why do people care about my name, my last name, my address, my password, my login? Well, the first reason is because that's valuable data. It's valuable data on two senses. It's valuable even from a legal side. It helps marketers. On the illegal side, it helps because it creates an identity that somebody else can use. And that identity can be sold. So some actors only specialize in stealing identity and reselling that identity on forums. They're called access brokers. Once actors, malicious actors, cyber criminals, if you will, have access to your identity, they can use it to access your network. They can use this to access what you know. Um, the minute they have your credentials, passwords, the sky is the limit. They can do so either to target you specifically as individual. They can want money from you. They can want to try to trick you, or they need your identity to trick your friends. On a professional level, your personal identity is not only a door to you as an individual, it's also an open door to you as a professional, and thus the employers, partners, contractors, payees, vendors with whom you interact every day. So that's why digital identity matters. Actors can do a lot with credentials, with your name, with your social security number. Identity compromises at a glance. Here's what's interesting. It takes about 36 days for the average set of credentials to be recognized. And that leaves an enormous amount of time for actors. Just so you know, right now, we estimate that an actor with knowledge of a network can find an open door within 11 minutes. If you don't discover that for 36 days, we've opened the door to a lot of potential consequences. The average loss tied to identity compromises is about $240,000. It goes all the way down to a few thousand, but it also, on the upper end, can find itself in the millions. One
So,
of the biggest gaps that we see is people and companies that have enabled some kind of identity protection, but either it's not well deployed or it's not deployed for everybody. And we see a lot of cases where companies thought they were safe, but as mentioned, they didn't properly deploy the solution that specifically protects identity. So that's something we'll talk about later as well, is if you have MFA, you got to make sure that everybody's protected, that the MFA itself is not compromised, that you don't reuse passwords in your primary accounts and your MFA accounts as well. So, biggest external threats. I was talking to Mitch and Julie yesterday to prepare for this. And one of the question was, who is doing all this stuff and what are the consequences? So I wanted to come up with this slide to answer that specific question. In October 2025, there was a United States wide, industry wide spike in ransomware activity. That activity was led by two main groups, Akira and Killin. Who are Akira and Killin? Both of them are Russian based or Commonwealth independent states based cyber groups. All of them, Akira and Killin, are what we call ransomware as a service. They themselves sell ransomware tools and capabilities to other actors who then use those in order to commit their crimes. You can almost think of them as a Hertz or an Avis that would rent you a car so you go from point A to point B. When you are an associate of these groups, you borrow their tools so you can go from uh, knowing very little about cybercrime to ransoming companies all over the world. And as you can see, the group activity goes up and down in 2025. They're targeting manufacturing, they're targeting healthcare, they're targeting construction companies. Their activity goes up throughout the year, 54% for Killin, 109% for Akira over Q3 alone. But what's even more incredible with those two groups, who are very sophisticated, is that what made them effective, the number two, the two top vectors that they had was they either bought or stole credentials from access brokers, or they deployed phishing attacks, social engineering attacks to collect sets of credentials from victims. That's more than 80% of their success rate. Mitch.
yeah, no, I think a couple things. Number one, you take a look at the healthcare industry. I think a lot of us on this call, when we think about the healthcare, why do you believe these ransom where attacks are going for the healthcare. I think that to
Yeah.
me is something we know, but I think sharing that why the healthcare is so big.
Oh, absolutely. Um, if we look at actors like Akira and Killing, and we look at Attack on Healthcare, we're looking at two specific reasons. The first reason are Akira and Killing are associated with the Russian state. So one of their mandates, if you will, is to create chaos, to make the West doubt about our own capabilities, our own utilities. By attacking healthcare, they're creating chaos. They are sowing distrust. On top of it, healthcare is heavily regulated when it comes to data. Healthcare data is regulated and sharing of data is regulated by HIPAA. So actors know that if they can compromise data owned by a healthcare institution, there is a very high chance that that institution will want to pay a ransom as quickly as possible to not divulge the fact that data was compromised. Thus, putting that victim in the crosshair of regulators. Uh, so it's brutal, but there are solutions, as we can see here. Identity is their main vector into networks. Therefore, it's not really a technology threat. It's more of a human threat. They also use brute force entry, where, for example, they will have either a login or they'll have a password, or they have a password. For example, let's pretend that Mitch has an Amazon password and his password is Mitch 101, but he also has a Yahoo password, but we don't have that one. Well, so what the actors will do is they'll start with Mitch Amazon password and then go through every single variation of that till one works. That would be a brute force entry. Or the other thing they do is they exploit public facing application by leveraging known vulnerabilities. So when we talk about vulnerabilities in cyber, we're talking about a line of code that is not secure. Think of it as leaving your house with the door open. Companies publish their CVEs, their updates, their patches, and it's up to all of us as users to update, whether it's our phones, our computers, even our cars these days. And if we don't do that, we leave an open door. You leave your car unlocked. You leave your bank account on your phone accessible. You leave your computer at the mercy of anybody who can have access to it.
Matthew, I think the brute force entry, while many of us over the last 5, 6 years may be annoyed with the MFA, the multi-factor authentication, whether getting a text
Yeah.
message or an email, that seems to be one of the easiest ways when you don't have that.
Absolutely, because when properly deployed, MFA doubles the security linked to login and passwords. That's why it's so important to never use the same login and password twice. The actor may have the login to the MFA, but they may not have the actual login to the network or website. Often, though, it's the other way around. MFA providers are pretty good at keeping their data safe. However, your Google account, your Wells Fargo account, your Capital One account, your Target account, Walmart, wherever you shop, that is not as well protected. Therefore, when you had MFA with properly installed across the board, everybody in your family, every employee at a company has it, then you're making it a lot harder for actors because they may have guess your password, but chances are it's going to be a lot harder to guess two passwords.
Right.
Who are the biggest overall threats? So we talk about Russians and ransomware groups and what they do, but at the end of the day, the bigger threat to digital identity is the end user. It's us. Um, Human error is the leading factor in identity compromise. And how do actors do that? They fish, they fish, they whale. There's tons of names about how they do it, but it comes down to one thing. An actor will create a opportunity for them to somewhat establish trust and put a victim in a position where they have to act quickly. You got a letter that says your bank account is compromised. Click here. Well, maybe you didn't realize that that account that sent you the email is not a true account associated with your bank. So you click and they'll ask you for your password. They'll ask you for your login. They'll ask you for your social security number. You may not be aware that you are communicating all that info to somebody else. It used to be Nigerian princes. Now it's a fake email coming from your CEO, from your parents, telling you they need you to wire them money, from your grandparents asking you for financial advice, from your kids who are asking for more allowance for the week. The biggest overall threats also, as we said, Akira and Killing, they leverage identity. They also leverage CVEs, on-patch and end-of-life technology. And the reason I wanted to show you this specific slide, it's because those actors operate like businesses. They want to expand and prioritize the return on investment, which means they are going to go and try to leverage and compromise what they know to be widely used technologies through already existing backdoors or errors in the code. So, for example, there was a big Cisco CVE that led to massive ransomware. There was a Veeam, VMware, Veritas backup. All those are well-known technologies. So two things to be aware of them. The first two steps we need to know to keep our digital identity secure. Let's not share with anybody. Let's check all the time. And whether it's a cell phone, a computer, a car, as we mentioned, we need to patch. We need to update. We need to get ahead and not wait for it to be too late.
The one thing that comes to mind when you talk about patch and update, I think of myself, as a parent to a couple, younger kids. One of them, I mean, we give them our older cell phone, and then I think of my parents too, who don't get upgraded cell phones. Well, there's a
Absolutely.
point where those cell phones they eventually stop doing the update, and
Absolutely.
from what you're saying, Matthew, is that can now be a concern because if they're not updating, they're not getting those patches put in there, it could be compromising the data
Yep.
that could be on those phones.
I think the only phone you can share today that will keep you cyber safe is a rotary phone. Absolutely cyber safe. But to your point, in October 15th, 2025, Microsoft declared that Windows 10 was at end of life, no longer support. So users really had a few options. Continue using Windows 10, knowing that the security will no longer be updated automatically, or upgrade to Windows 11 and pick up that new technology and all the updates, or subscribe to a spatial limited time contract with Microsoft for the release of not as frequent critical updates for their aging Windows 10. But at the end of the day, it's very dangerous in cyber terms to use technology that has become obsolete and is no longer considered as updated and as secure as it used to be. So
Absolutely.
yeah, if you're a parent and you have a phone and it's 5 years old and you give it to your kid, more than likely that phone is has a very, very short lifespan, if any lifespan at all.
Wow.
Uh, We also wanted to talk to you about those ransomware and the actors and who they are. And we just covered how and why they're successful. Now I want to move forward and discuss what does identity threat means to different age groups. We wanted to talk to you about children's, professional, and the elderly. For kids, there's really three reasons why actors are trying to get into a kid's account. You have your predators seeking to cause physical, emotional harm. They use it for blackmail. You have your peers, and we've seen several examples in the news of young kids harming themselves or killing themselves over cyberbullying. Or you have fraudsters already creating imposter accounts for kids in order two things they try to do here, either to have direct impact now and try to leverage that identity against parents or family members, or in a few cases, they are going to let that account live and expand, which means that years down the road, that account will actually look like it's been around, that it is legitimate because there are years of history behind it. And the reason they're going to want to do that is to identify threats, identify interest of the original person, and now they have years of knowledge about that person to go against those specific interests. For example, a job. For example, the network at their professional employer. Um, Mitigation steps for kids, you have to increase privacy, you have to use unique passwords, you need to talk about the kids, inform them about the dangers, and really, as parents, we need to monitor. There is a very famous case right now of those Minecraft and Roblox accounts and games that have been known to be generators of this type of activity from fraudsters because they've understood that a lot of kids play those games with that adult supervision. Um, let's talk.
Matthew,
Oh, yep.
on the children, what I think is scary and most are not aware. I I was researching and reviewing this. Kids have uh, a 50 times higher probability of having their identities stolen. And the thing as parents, those of us
Mhm.
looking at that, how can we keep track of that? And everything comes down to, looking at potentially credit scores or maybe even
A-
freezing the credit for our kids.
Absolutely. Kids are trustful. They don't understand the threats. As when we were children, we see adults as sources of authority. It's very important to educate kids as early as possible. More than anything, it's even more important to monitor a kid's information online. When kids play games, it is especially crucial to their well-being and behavior to be able to put limits on what they do online. So for example, I have a 7-year-old. He loves World of Warcraft. So he's got his own tablet. He's only allowed to play World of Warcraft within the universe that I created for him. There are no other human beings in that universe, just bots. And it may not be the most fun, but it's safe. He's learning the game, he's learning and interacting with technology, but nobody else but him has access to that universe.
Yeah. And no, I mean, and as you mentioned earlier, having a VPN it also helps with some of that protection too. So
Yeah, having a private network at home in case it could be compromised, having MFA on their account to make sure they and only they are signing up in the accounts. All those go into play and keeping people safe. Uh,
yeah,
Talking about keeping people safe, this is the number one set of target by the most sophisticated actors, and those are professionals, because professionals hold the keys to the kingdom. They hold the keys to the legal kingdom associated with their employers, to the data kingdom, and to the kind of technologies and proprietary information that other nations may want to hold on to, or even competitors. So what we see a lot when it comes to professionals is attempts to scam or steal money, or state actors or ransomware groups seeking weak entry points, and they're either trying to steal, they're trying to get into data, or in some cases they're trying to access secrets, proprietary information, research that hasn't been published yet. And the last type that we see is disgruntled employees seeking revenge. And those are especially devious because they have already an understanding of what the network looks like, what the defenses look like, and they have a prior set of login credentials that too often is not canceled quickly enough. Mitigation step for all of these: increase privacy settings on all social media accounts. Your social media life, what you put on Facebook's, X, Twitter, TikTok, um, whatever is out there. Is MySpace still a thing? Probably not. I'm dating myself right here. But the more LinkedIn, the more we post online about who we are, what we do, where we are, what we like, the more we feed the toolkit of that actors can use against us.
We talked about it yesterday. While post 2020, the pandemic, it allowed for more of a virtual at home office space. um, what you're talking about right now has really increased that cyber
Absolutely.
threat.
Absolutely. The office used to be both a physical way to protect a business with high walls and locks and windows that close, but it was also where all the computers used to be. So there was a physical barrier to the access, whether physical or cyber, to a company's technology. Now that we have laptops and cell phones and that we take the work from home, that technology has now suffered from having a lot more access points than it used to. So it's both a great freedom, but it's also a greater responsibility that falls to the end user. Um, a lot of businesses can do. Increase privacy settings, like I mentioned, watch for what you put on social media. But use unique, strong passwords on all accounts. And that works across the line. Not an account should have the same login, should have the same password, and that falls the same for your MFA. And monitor your credit as often as you can. And if you think something's wrong, go freeze it as well and get help, get counsel. If this is something that your business is offering, often the faster you can report malicious activity, the easier it is not only for the business to recover, but also it is to exonerate you and whatever mistake you may have made. Let's move to the elderly. The elderly, unfortunately, are a gigantic target because there is a sense that they don't understand technology as well. Also, they often hold the purse of their life savings that they amass for the sake of being able to retire and do all the things that they've dreamt of doing. So you have almost this perfect clash here of lack of understanding of technology, built-in trust, and massive amounts of money. We've seen actors attack the elderly for blackmail and also to collect information to create convincing imposter accounts or interact with financial institutions on behalf of or pretending to be the victim themselves. The mitigation steps here is really all about being the same as considering yourself a business. Increase privacy settings. All social media accounts only share with the people you know in real life. Use unique, strong password, all accounts and MFA. You can freeze your credit with all three major bureaus if needed, and really education. Um, Cell phones are fairly new. Cyber is fairly new. When we talk to the elderly, unfortunately, we talk with a generation that is not born within that cyber world. Therefore, there is a greater need to adapt. There is a greater need to educate.
I think that right there is probably the biggest thing. I mean, we've, for us as generations, we can, tell our parents, tell the elderly, if you get a phone call, don't give any information on the phone. But now with text messaging and with links inside of text,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
that seems to be one of the biggest ways most recently.
Yeah.
The you know the those cyber attacks have been hitting, and I mean, is there anything else around that you can offer any guidance on?
Absolutely. AI is all over the news right now. We're all talking about AI. So when it comes to cyber in a malicious sense, there is no such thing yet as a AI built cyber attack. The robots, the computers haven't done that yet. So we're nowhere near in the world of that Terminator movie. Where we are, however, is a world where AI has lowered the threshold needed for somebody to commit crime. For example, before, a lot of foreign actors would contact American or English speaking victims, and the very first clue that the criminal was not who they pretended to be was the mistakes in grammar and lack of proper understanding of language culture. Well, AI has bypassed that now. Anybody can go into Google, your Gmail, your Microsoft, and using the email generators or language generator, you can get to very polished messages. The AI can ask you if you want the message to be friendly, to be professional, to be stern, and it's becoming a lot harder. The same thing with voices. It only takes about 30 seconds of a voice sample for AI to be able to replicate somebody's voice. And so this is leading to phone calls now that can come from your mom, from your dad, for anybody who's posted on YouTube, for anybody who posted a family vacation on Facebook where they describe what they're doing. Now that voice can be replicated, sent to a kid, to a parent, to a relative, to a friend via a message, and it sounds just like if you, as the victim, had sent it. Uh, there's really one key that I like to repeat to folks, and it's that notion of discipline. If you're not talking to the person face to face and they're asking you to do something, pick up the phone and call them. If that's your neighbor, get out of the house and go talk to them. If it's a colleague at the office, go to their space and ask him if they sent that. It doesn't take long, and it will save millions of dollars.
Uh, To me, that's probably one of the best advice is if you know somebody that's getting these messages and requesting it, and
Mhm.
it is so well socially engineered, especially if it's asking for money, if it's asking
Oh,
for any access to
absolutely.
personal
Absolutely.
information. You just
Yeah.
need to pick up the phone and call
And
or
we've
go see
seen
them.
the cases have already happened where let's pretend your nephew Bob is in vacation in Italy and he's posting on YouTube or Facebook videos of his visits to Rome, to Firenze. He's loving wine, he's loving the pizza, he's loving the pasta, talking at length about how great it is. Well, actors have already honed in such vacation videos. And because Facebook is an open network, if you will, they were able to find out uh, where the poster is, but also go to LinkedIn. Now you figure out this is where they work, this is who they work with. Then they take the voice, and suddenly that nephew of yours is in Italy and everything is doing well. He's sending a message to a colleague saying that he's been arrested and he need help gathering money for bail, even though that's not even a thing in Italy. But it sounds convincing. It makes sense because of the information that was released online. And as far as the colleague knows, this is an emergency call, and his friend needs help right now. And it's worked in the past.
Wow.
Uh,
I
so the key recommendations here is really comes down to two things. Uh, di Discipline. Check what you're doing. Be careful what you post. Monitor the kids. Whenever you can, do not share personal data that can be used to answer security questions. Financial documents should not be shared online ever. Limit location sharing. Delete unused social accounts. And don't post more than you would want somebody who doesn't know you to know. Now, best practices for cyber awareness. Now that we've covered who the actors are and how efficient they are at breaking into your accounts, at stealing money. And now we've seen a few cases of how they target and why they target different age group. There's a few things that we can do that are pretty easy, even as individual users. Uh, Password hygiene. It used to be hard to have really good passwords because you have to remember them. They have to be lengthy. You have to change them pretty often. These days, though, I must say, Google and a lot of other internet service will have their own password management free of charge. It manages your own password. It can help you come up with passwords. It helps you remember passwords. I would strongly advise to use something like the Google Password Management or purchase one. There's a few companies as well here, and I'm not endorsing anybody, but there's one called One Password that does a pretty good job at helping those as well. Whenever you can, especially with anything work related, have MFA, multiple factor authentication. Whenever you want access to a network, you have to give it a multiple cue that you are who you say you are. MFA can be its own logging password, a second set. It could be your fingerprint. It could be facial recognition. It could be a question whose answer only you would be able to provide. Um, Stay vigilant. Phishing, I do it through training, but I always tell people treat any email as hostile until you know it's not. An invoice, a friend who needs help, somebody needs money, anything that asks you something should be checked. You never, you don't ever click before you've checked. Uh, Keep devices software updated, especially today. I always keep the example of cars. If you don't get your car tire pressure updated once in a while, pretty soon you'll be driving on rims, and that's never a good idea. I was kind of the same with technology. Uh, Make sure you have your cell phone, your computer set to automated updates. And cell phones these days, they're nothing more than tiny little computers that have the very same level of access to your digital life, to your financial life, and probably to your professional network as well. Secure your network. If you are using public Wi-Fi, use a VPN to shield you from other users of public Wi-Fi who may be trying to get into your devices to know what your passwords are. At home, if you have your own internet and you're given a router, make sure the first thing you do is change the passwords away from what the factory settings were. There's been examples of breaches where the manufactured um, passwords were leaked to actors who would track to whom those routers were sold. So first thing you do, you get your router from any provider, go in the back, and then make sure you follow the prompt so that you can change that password immediately. Implement cyber awareness training, especially useful for kids and employees. As we mentioned, um, phishing, vishing, whaling, all those attempts to social engineer situations where people feel that they have to provide information that they should keep secret are very well documented. The actors are getting very good at it, but there's one thing that they cannot do yet, and it's prevent you from checking. There's something new that we have at Cowbell, and it's called Cowbell Identity Monitoring. This one is pretty cool. Imagine that your password, your set of credentials, has a life of its own. We can track, we as cybersecurity professionals, with your blessing, using such processes, can track when and where and from where you use your credentials. So, for example, Julie here is on the call. Every day she logs in from her office at about 8 a.m. That would be considered normal behavior. What if in the middle of the night somebody logs in with Julie's credential out of Nigeria? Well, there's two cases here. Either Julie is in vacation in Nigeria, or somebody there got a hold of her password and is using them to get into her accounts. With situations like those, um, capabilities that identity monitoring will end the session the second the activity is recognized as being outside the norms. The behavior has changed. There were no advance warning. That capability will shut down the sessions. It will get you out of your banking account. It will get you out of your email. It will protect your identity, not based on anything else than being able to identify what regular patterns are. For all Cabell policyholders, by the way, um, this is not a hard sale, but just so you know, we give 30-day free trial to this capability. Um, Here is how it works. And this is a real case scenario. There was a CFO, and they were moving to a new payroll provider. On payday, the initial task, the final task from this particular CFO was to initiate a bank draw. They got an urgent email. Payroll contact said, "There's no time. Nothing is ready yet. You have to wire the money." The CFO sent, smaller size company, $400,000. What had happened was early on, they had went into Microsoft signing prompt from an email. Everything looked okay. They were not aware that they had been phished. The attack timeline was very quickly. The attackers logged into the CEO's account by 12:25. By 2 p.m. rather, only 90 minutes later, the attacker had been able to assess what the company that should have interacted with the CEO was, what they look like, who they would have been talking to, sent a fake payroll contact request, and tricked the CFO in wiring $400,000. So one of the beauty of that activity and identity AI is that here, for example, the attacker had logged from Albania. That would have been tracked as a out of behavior, out of norm use of those credentials by identity AI. They would have ended the session. Also, the actor, when they got into the CFO's inbox, they changed the inbox rules to allow for spam and phishing to get in. That also would have been flagged because that also would have been outside of the known activity. The impact of such attacks are that payroll is missed, $400,000 sent overseas, your employees are not paid, you have to claim, you have to file a claim with your insurance. You've wasted a lot of time, a lot of money, and it's been very stressful. Um, on this last note, I thank you for your attention. Identity, as I mentioned, is everybody's um, cross to bear at this point. We're all responsible. We have to treat it as our own name, our own words, and the keys to the house today is your digital identity. Thank you.